Oh my goodness. All right. Hi, I'm Kevin Weir, originally from Southern California, and I've moved up to Central California. Today's date is, what is it, November 22nd?
22nd, yeah.
I think I was born into Star Wars. So yeah, I was born before Star Wars was first released in 77, as everybody knows. I was born in 75. So I don't really remember watching Star Wars. I do remember watching Empire Strikes Back in the theater with my dad. I was a little kid still. I remember sitting on his lap and just being amazed, you know, especially when Luke and Vader were doing the lightsaber battle. It scared me, and also I was really like drawn in towards Star Wars. But I think my older brother really kept the Star Wars story alive in our family and our friends, and it was like the cool thing to get something for Christmas or our birthdays that was Star Wars related. So I don't, like I said, I don't recall ever seeing Star Wars, but it was part of my life growing up, from having all the action figures and going to Toys R Us and receiving all these action figures as gifts from friends and family. So it always stuck with me as I grew up. And when it came to Return of the Jedi, I remember we went to a friend's house, like our whole family went to a friend's house that had it on Laserdisc. So that's all I started. I was probably a teenager. I remember going to like KB toy stores, and there were still action figures there, and I thought that was really cool. And I remember going to my friend's like aunt's house who lived down by the beach, and I saw the Star Wars like box set they had. I was like, guys, let's watch Star Wars. And they're like, what? No, let's go to the beach. And so I think there was a time period where I didn't have that group of friends that really resonated or connected with Star Wars the same way, you know, I did, you know. So I think there was that little bit of that gap where there was a void for a while, obviously, until they started to re-release Star Wars, and so with the special editions. But yeah, there was kind of a gap. I remember going to this place off the promenade to, you know, find some of these rare toys, and one of the guys there mentioned that Mark Hamill was there with some stormtroopers doing a signing, and that just opened my eyes to possibilities of like a stormtrooper suit could be tangible, like people are wearing this, and I'm like, how do you get one? He's like, oh, they're really expensive, and I'm just like, okay, but where do you get one? Like, I needed to know more about this. So researching and so forth, we stumbled across a site that was selling a stormtrooper suit. And I told my wife, I'm like, I always want to be a stormtrooper. She's like, okay. Now, mind you, at this time, I knew nothing about the Fileverse. This is 94? Yeah, probably 93, 94. And we got a stormtrooper suit. I assembled it, and we were out and about one Halloween, and somebody mentioned the 501st, asking if we were a part of it. And I had no clue what that was. My wife Google searched it, and she's like, look, there's a club. There's people like you that dress in these costumes. And I just found this connection between this costuming, and at that time, there was a bunch of fan films being made, and people were asking for stormtroopers and so forth. And so I would go to these things and participate and help out. And there's this place called Frankensons, and I went there just to kind of see what was going on. And one of the guys that I was just filming with was there, and he's like, hey, did you bring your suit? I'm like, my suit for what? Like, I just came here to see what, you know, what's what. And he's like, oh no, the rest of the guys are here. I'm like, the rest of who? What guys? He's like, the 501st. I was like, okay. Apparently it was a scheduled event to be at the Frankensons, and it had Daniel Logan, plays young Boba Fett, was there. Peter Mayhew plays Chewbacca, and Ray Parks, who has played Darth Maul. We're all there doing a signing. I was like, this is pretty cool. And called my wife. She brought me my stormtrooper gear, put it on, and I just mingled with the rest of the guys, getting to know them, and it was awesome. I'm gonna say it's more than 10. I'm running out of room, you know. So, you know, the thing is, my wife is also now a 501st member, kids, I have all 4 boys, and they've all accumulated costumes each time they've grown. So I have a space just packed with costumes. So for me, myself, I know I have at least 10 that are ready to wear pretty much at any time. So that's the thing is it's very addictive. You know, it started off with the one stormtrooper, and that then I converted to sand trooper, which I actually marched in the 2007 Rose Parade as a sand trooper. And the reason why I got more costumes was went to Celebration 3 in Indianapolis, and that was right around the time that clones were really ramping up for episode 3. And I just kind of, you know, just felt that connection with clones. Clone, which is, you know, fully plastic from head to toe. I mean, gosh, I think that was 2009 when I started making the animated stuff. And the mobility is somewhat limited. And I remember first debuting it at Comic-Con in 2009. And Dave Filoni was there and jumped up in some of the photos with us. He was asking about the mobility. He was like, can you really walk in this? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, look, I can bend my knees, I can move my arms. And I think he was sort of impressed by that. I think the original is still a timeless classic. Like, that's how a lot of people will word it, a timeless classic. I really think it is. I have to say I've enjoyed it. It sounds weird to say. You know, the original trilogy definitely was like the roots to my childhood. And having the prequels was the expansion of my life and realizing this is still obtainable. There's still something there. There's still stories, there's still messages, and we're getting to know the past of these characters that we know the future. So I really liked that idea. And we know it was very, you know, a thing of its time to bring Star Wars back. I think it was important for the next generation to be part of it. To then have the Clone Wars come in and kind of have a new way of telling the story to another generation in like an animated format. With the sequels, I think there was a lot of hype for that. I don't know if it hit me the same way as the earlier Star Wars telling did. I feel that there is something different about it. I'm grateful there's more Star Wars. Maybe I've become a little more nitpicky in the Star Wars that resonates with me. The live action series, I'm grateful that there's been so many different episodes, you know, or different stories of like Andor and Kenobi and Ahsoka and Mando, of course. And I will wait up to midnight to watch those, you know, because I don't want it spoiled in that morning for me. So there's definitely still a strong fandom, and I still care deeply about Star Wars. So my fandom level is strong. My opinion is maybe a little stronger as I've gotten older within my own self. I love it all, you know. There's, as me wanting to, I'm grateful there is Star Wars, right? I mean, imagine if all of this ended in the 90s. I feel they've gone the right way by creating new stories. I think there's more stories to tell. As we know, George Lucas had many stories to tell. It was like one maker and another maker, and it was getting really difficult to find a good clone, in my opinion. And I went to art school. Illustration and sculpture was my major, and so I just kind of had this idea that, well, maybe I could do it. I learned about casting. I learned about, you know, certain elements of making this, and I at this time was kind of grouping up with some other friends that wanted to do a fan film that wanted clones, and I was like, well, let's try this. So it all started with the idea that I wanted to make stories, and I thought, well, let me make the costumes to help us tell these fan stories. You know, in the art school, I learned a lot about human form, And I loved automobiles and just the way that things come together. There's a lot of ingenuity. And I think when it came to costuming, that there's a lot of problem solving. How are these parts going to fit together? How are they going to be functional? How can the human body actually still move appropriately and still look the character, especially with clones, that there was never a full-size costume made for Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. It was all CGI. So I took it upon myself to try to make something that is wearable. And especially when it came to the Clone Wars, the animated series, that was even more challenging, of having that kind of spindly, animated looking character, but yet still fit the human form, and try to find that nice, size that fits a human between one size to another size, and yet still have the ease of the assembly because of the ingenuity that I would invest in time to make the parts. Oh, it feels like I have to meet those standards continuously. Like, once you've reached a certain, let's say like in school, right? You've shown you can do that really good report. So your teacher expects that level of work every time to pass the class. That's sort of how I feel. It's like each time I've created something, I've done something, I may try to challenge myself to improve it and make it better, or make it look more like the character, or maybe to try to even be like as best as a replica as I can. So that's the artist in me, always striving to do better and challenge myself. The iCat from Mando season 2, I think it's like chapter 15, The Believer. When they wore that armor, oh man, I connected with it so well. I mean, I reached out to you and I was like, I need to make this. And I remember somebody else asking, are you making this for a show? Are you making for this? I go, no, this is for me. And the soft goods were a key factor. And knowing somebody who does the soft goods and willing to painstakingly match the level of detail that I put into the hard parts, is a really blessing, to help me fulfill this character. And so I did as much research as I could, as I do with other ones, but even trying to find out what paints did they use, I wanted to try to challenge myself to make a replica as close to represent what was on screen as possible. I guess what I'm trying to do is create now, before it was cosplay, right? It was filling the void of a character that's not being made. There was like 10 years ago, it was like, try to be the first, rush and get it done. And I took like a step back from that, where quality means more than just being the first or rushing, and try to create more of a perfect likeness to my opinion. How could I make it look and resemble exactly what we see on the show? Being involved with that direct contact with like Lucasfilm or with Disney on certain projects is surprising. I think back as a kid, just watching Star Wars was amazing. And then actually getting to meet some of the people that worked on the show or the actors on the show, it's like, is that real? My wife will remind me, it's like, well, no, you're good at what you do. I'm like, well, thanks, And I think all that hard work is sort of paying off. The fandom is coming in full circle, Not only does it bring joy to me, but now, as I was saying, not only does it bring joy to me, but now I have the opportunity to bring the joy to others from something I'm being allowed to create for a certain event or certain, it's really cool.